Hello everyone, this video is going to show you how you can use Google Forms for a few ways. One, how you could set it up as an assessment, whether it's a formative or summative assessment, and for it to autograde for you. Secondly, another one to share with you is how you could add interesting questions, specifically whether it's just multiple choice, but also adding imagery as your question, as your answer choices, which is very helpful for our younger crowds or people that do need a visual answer choice. So right now I have a primary secondary source assessment put it in front of me, and I was starting to add questions, and just like in any Google form, you click in an area, you could add any sort of question you like, and you could add any sort of answer choices you like just by clicking and adding options. So nothing's changed there, and also allowing it to be required, or else students will bypass that, right? So that's just by adding a question as well. Another option is that you can not only add text, but you could add images as well. So if I was to click on the little picture button here, I could upload an image if I have one, or I can go to my Google Drive and grab one, or even more importantly, I can search for an image and use that image as my answer choice as well, which is very helpful. And just to show you what that looks like is that if I was to preview that, it has your questions, and you could even have an image answer choice. This is very, very helpful for all of us. All right, so at this point, I just have a few questions listed here. And the next part is how do I set this up so that it can self-grade for me, which is going to be very helpful for all of us because assessments is something that we need to do, whether it's to assess for learning or of learning. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little gear button in the top right corner. I'm going to choose quizzes, and I'm just going to slide this to turn it on, so I'm going to make it as a quiz. Now here, there's many different options on how you can set up your quiz. Immediately after each submission, it will provide the students their grade, or later after a manual review, which turns on an email collection and sends a grade as well. What the respondents can see, you could tell if what they have missed, what they have correct, or what point values are available. So you could turn that off on letting students know what they have received or not. So that's based off teacher discretion. But at this point, I'm gonna leave this on, and I'm just gonna press save. Okay, at this point, how do I set my questions to have point values? All I do is I click on any of my questions, I choose answer key, and I choose which one is the correct answer and how many points it's worth. So I'm just going to flip through some of these right now and do that. Okay, so at this point, I've set every one to have 1 point for each question, so it's ready to be sent out to my students. So at this point, what I would typically do is I could just uh, create it as an assignment in my Google Classroom. So I would just hit this little plus button, make it an assignment. I'm just going to call this my primary and secondary source assessment. And I'm going to go to my Google Drive, and I'm just going to grab that assessment I was working on right now and hit add. For right now, for what I'm doing, I'm just going to assign it, but you could always assign it. You could schedule it to assign it at a certain time. You could give it a due date. You could give it a topic, many different things you can do, but I'm going to assign it for here. Okay, so at this point, we want to see what the students would see. So I'm going to be a student, and as a student, it just released to me, so I'm going to open my assessment. Okay, so I'm just going to open my assessment at this point, and here I'm going to start answering my questions. So I'm just going to just randomly pick things right now. So I'm going to select what I have right and what I have wrong. Now I'm going to make some wrong answer choices right now, so I'm going to flip-flop these. Okay, and I'm going to submit it. Okay, from a teacher's perspective now, what you're going to see is that now I found out that one student had finished it, and I should be able to click on here, and I could actually go to that assessment, right? And I want to see all the what has turned in. So I'm going to go to edit the assessment. I'm going to go to my responses, and here, I got it. So here I can actually see overall for my students, are my students getting certain questions on each exact question here, right? So that tells me how my students are doing in my classroom, but I could also switch to individual responses, and I could see also that here are all the grades that this student got right or wrong. And then at that point, I could hit release score because maybe I don't want to give my students all the information right away. So I'm just going to hit release score, and I'm going to send emails and release the score back to that student. And that student now should get that grade. So at that point, it's a little bit of work that's put involved. However, now this assessment is created. I can repost it anytime in Google Classroom. And if I have any students that are any teachers that are co-teachers, they could utilize the same method as well. And you have a self-graded assessment.